Is it true that the internet always says there are 9 dimensions and countless parallel spacetimes in the world? Is Earth the only one in the world, or is it just a drop in the ocean among countless planets? Do myths and legends exist? I don't know when it started, exotic beasts descended on Earth, and superpowers awakened one after another. As the chosen star, Earth has 2 academies, Abel and Haotian. And what kind of existence does it have above the 9 dimensions? This is our planet. Anyone who invades will be shot to death, and we will swear to protect it to the death. Chapter 1. Under the Twilight. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. On the scorching summer day of June 3rd at the entrance of No. 7 Middle School in Shanghai City, that English teacher is so crazy that he assigned 10 reading comprehension papers. I can't finish them all night on weekends. Why don't we exchange answers? You write the first 3 papers, I write the 3 papers, and everyone should share them. It's 6 o'clock in the afternoon, just as the students are finishing school. They raved about the mountain of homework and discussed things that had nothing to do with learning except copying homework. By the way, I heard that there has been news in Shanghai City, and something terrible has happened. One of the boys suddenly said, arousing the interest of others. Hurry up, what's going on? You can't even say it. I guess the news should be very explosive. Under the urging of everyone, the boy said calmly, a few days ago, a towering pillar of fire appeared in the suburbs, and dozens of lightning fell around. Generally speaking, it is impossible for so many lightning to occur at the same time and place. Did you find anything? A strong boy asked. No, there's only a huge pit a few meters wide and 2 meters deep, with some blurry pieces of meat. I can't find what triggered such a terrifying event. Tang Tianshu, you always do some mystical things. Do you know what's going on? The boy named Tang Tianshu was momentarily stunned when he heard this, and then looked at the boy with a look of madness. Is there something seriously wrong with your brain? I'm a mystic, but how can I understand these things? Ah. Does metaphysics not include supernatural events just now? Metaphysics is mostly about fortune-telling and feng shui. If this is also metaphysics, then it should be a vision of a master ascending. Yeah, maybe it's really possible. Tang Tianshu. Tang Tianshu looked up at the gradually dimming sky, taking deep breaths while suppressing the urge to smash this thing with his backpack. Do you believe in gods and ghosts, Tang Tianshu? The tall boy asked. Believe it, I think some so-called supernatural events are caused by things we can't see. Besides, how many things in this world are we unaware of? Do you believe it? The tall boy opened his mouth and was about to say something, but couldn't say it for a moment. Everyone was chatting with each other, and before they knew it, they walked to a station. Alright, I'm going back. Goodbye everyone, goodbye, remember to read WeChat. Okay. Tang Tianshu walked into the station with a man with glasses, and soon got on a bus. Tang Tianshu lives alone and his home is quite far from the school. It takes 10 minutes by car and another 15 minutes to walk to his home after getting off. Although I don't quite believe these things, Shanghai City has been causing a stir lately, said the man with glasses next to Tang Tianshu. Oh. What exactly should I say? In addition to the supernatural phenomenon mentioned by Zhang Tao just now, many people have died in Suicang Mountain and the suburbs. 2 survivors described that a few creatures that didn't seem to be on Earth killed and ate some of them, and then several people wearing black cloaks fell down and killed several creatures. How could they see so clearly? If they were near the scene, they should have been discovered by those strange creatures or black-robed people long ago. They said they were about 500 meters away from the scene at the time, and they saw it with a camera. The video was a bit blurry, and they couldn't even see clearly how the black-robed man killed the monster and what the monster looked like. Originally, the upper echelons had already suppressed the controversy surrounding these murders, but as more and more people died, the upper echelons couldn't contain it. Only then did we know this information. Why can't I see the news? What I just said is considered a secret, the media doesn't know yet. So why are you one of those two survivors? Is my uncle. Shanghai City, eastern suburb, an abandoned warehouse. Captain, do you think those exotic beasts are from Fantasy Night? Are they many? Can we fight them? Asked a woman in a black cloak, with a sign on her chest that read Haotian. Jingwen said it's a group of Qianjun realms, and the strongest one is just a Xiantong realm. As for the specific number, I don't know, the man in charge replied. This warehouse is covered in moss, surrounded by trees and deserted. Several tens of meters away from the warehouse, 6 black figures stood tall in the air, without any support under their feet. In the forest, a black shadow swiftly passed by, and wherever it went, trees and stones were marked with a warning line. If you look closely, there is a layer of moonlight on the black shadow. More than 10 seconds later, the warning line enveloped the warehouse within a radius of 3 kilometers, forming a closed square. When the warning lines were connected, a red light emitted from the warning line, forming an invisible barrier. After the decoration, the black shadow transformed into a moonlight and flew up into the sky, standing beside the man in charge in the air. Captain, the forbidden line has been set up. Black shadow transformed into a woman wearing a black cloak and said to the man. Everyone. Get ready for battle. I saw the captain burst out with a blue light. He wiped the sword bag on his back and then unsheathed a light blue long sword. On the left side of the captain stood 3 people, one pulling out 2 golden long swords on his back, and the other holding a black box. With a thought, the black box quickly decomposed and combined into a long sword full of technology. One person lifted their hands slightly, and the earth trembled. On the right side of the captain stood 2 people and the woman who had just turned into moonlight. One man waved his hand and a long gun flew from afar, landing in his hand. The gun body and the man burst into a strong silver light. The other woman slowly pulled out 2 golden straight knives from her back, and the woman who emitted moonlight also pulled out a fishy red straight knife from her waist. A few eerie-looking monsters in front of the warehouse looked at the 7 murderous people in the sky, fiercely tearing and roaring, their voices echoing through the entire forest. Fantasy Night's monster cleanup operation, start, shouted the captain. Immediately after, the 7 figures collided with the exotic beasts, fighting against each other. The roar kept coming out, but no sound reached outside the forbidden line. Chapter 2. The Escaped Faceless Woman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. More than 10 minutes later. The small warehouse had already been flattened, and the ground was covered with the bodies of various strange creatures. 3 of the 7 people were so tired that they sat on the ground, while the other 4 were chasing several monsters named Faceless Women. Boom! A few large hands composed of rock warriors killed 2 shameless women, and the man who controlled the land also suffered from exhaustion and collapsed on the ground. The man holding the technology long sword chopped down several slow-running shameless women, and when he saw that the others were nowhere to be found with the shameless woman, he turned back on the same path because he was not good at speed, let alone a teammate with a speed that could be considered abnormal and a captain who could move space. He didn't need to work hard to chase after them. The edge of the forbidden line, a moonlight and a blue light flickered in the forest, and in front of them were 4 frantically fleeing shameless women. A flash of moonlight flashed by, and the head of the shameless woman who had dropped out at the end was split in half. Black blood sprayed all over the ground, and the woman merged into the moonlight, brushing past the body and continuing to fly. The shameless woman running at the front collided with the forbidden line and was heavily rebounded by an invisible force. It suddenly realized that the invisible wall of the forbidden line could not be broken through, so it ran away directly. The other 2 tried a few times, but also ran away. A few seconds later, 2 figures landed here. Captain, they seem to have escaped the forbidden line, the woman said with some uncertainty. Not far from the forbidden line is the city center, and the consequences of shameless women escaping are self-evident. unexpectedly escaped. Trouble, the captain muttered to himself, Guiyangting, Du Xuanhuan, you. The captain glanced at the empty forest behind him and froze in place. Chao Yibin, Peng Weiluo, and Chu Jingtong are seriously injured. Du Xuanhuan has exhausted his mental strength. Although Guiyangting can still catch up, his speed is too slow to catch up. Now only the two of us can catch up with the shameless woman, but there are 3 who have escaped, the woman explained. Jingwen, can you flash kill the shameless woman? Yes. Number 34, let's quickly solve the 2 and then kill the remaining one as quickly as possible. The city is so big that our spiritual perception can fully cover it. Number 34, okay Captain. Then the captain's body emitted a blue light, and the next moment he moved to the city center. A deep moonlight enveloped Jingwen's figure, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into place. In the urban area, Tang Tianxiu's home is nestled in a group of intertwined alleys, like a maze. At 7 o'clock now, the sky is getting dark. The alley was already deserted, coupled with dim lighting in old-fashioned residential buildings. The standard horror film background adds a layer of eerie color to the alley. A few years ago, Tang Tianxiu had just moved in here. When he walked on the night road at night, he was so scared that he got lost. Now, he has become familiar with these small alleys. As for the man with glasses, he lives near Tang Tianxiu, so now these two are chatting slowly. Suddenly, the man with glasses stopped in his tracks and stood still. What's wrong? Tang Tianxiu asked in confusion. Tianxiu, do you smell any blood smell? The man in glasses hesitated for a moment and spoke up, hey brother, in this environment and at this time, don't joke around like this. Tang Tianxiu smiled and said. No, I'm not joking, I'm serious. Looking at the serious expression on the glasses man's face, Tang Tianxiu only felt a slight chill in the back of his neck. Of course, it was just a psychological effect of feeling strange here for many years. I don't know. Hurry up and go home to avoid any trouble, said the man with glasses sincerely, and the two of them quickened their pace. But as they walked, the smell of blood became heavier, even Tang Tianxiu's less sensitive nose could be clearly smelled, and the man with glasses also felt a bit nauseous. We didn't go the wrong way, did we? The man with glasses' voice trembled slightly. Firstly, the bloody smell made him want to vomit, and secondly, there might really be some homicide in this remote alley. No, Tang Tianxiu affirmed with years of habit. Is there any other way? No, there's only one way to go home in this alley maze. If you encounter something later, don't hesitate, turn around and run. Tang Tianxiu was also very scared, although they were two big men, he couldn't help feeling a bit scared in such a gloomy environment. As they walked, the two of them arrived at a crossroads. It was said to be an intersection, but in reality, they were facing a dead end with only 2 roads left and right to walk. The scene of a dead end directly frightened the two of them into standing still. More than 20 meters away from the two, a humanoid creature was half kneeling on the ground, with an extremely emaciated body. Its face disappeared and was replaced by a pitch-black hole and dense tentacles. Underneath it lies a blood and flesh-blurred corpse. Sleeping in the trough. The man with glasses shook his legs wildly, and his pants were already soaked through. This thing is the shameless woman pursued by those people wearing black cloaks. It heard the sound and stiffly raised its head, its tentacles dancing excitedly in the air. It stared straight at the two of them, although it didn't have eyes, and had already seen new food. Roar. The shameless woman's roar pulled the two back to reality. Split up and run. Tang Tianxiu shouted. In fact, before Tang Tianxiu shouted out, the man with glasses ran towards the left side of the road. Tang Tianxiu immediately ran to the right, and the shameless woman rushed out of the alley. Then without hesitation, she rushed towards Tang Tianxiu without even looking at the man with glasses, as if only Tang Tianxiu had just seen it. Tang Tianqiu. Why are you only chasing me? That guy is even slower than me. Why don't you go after him? Now is not the time for roast. Tang Tianqiu takes his school bag from his back and holds it in his hand as he runs. As the faceless woman was about to catch up with Tang Tianqiu suddenly stopped and forcefully smashed his backpack onto the faceless woman's chest. Suddenly, the faceless woman was pushed back several meters. Although the faceless woman is a monster in the Qianjun realm, its defense seems to be relatively weak, so Tang Tianqiu's backpack was knocked back several meters. Of course, another reason is that Tang Tianqiu's backpack is really heavy. The shameless woman roared and waved her tentacles, tearing apart her backpack. Her two bony hands instinctively moved forward and charged towards Tang Tianqiu again. The crisis of life and death made Tang Tianqiu's figure like an agile cheetah, swiftly weaving through the alleyways, seemingly circling aimlessly every time, but not plunging into a dead end. His mind was running wildly, attempting to find the only remaining chance of survival in the monster's mouth. As for the shameless woman, she always couldn't stop the car every time she turned, so she smashed several walls along the way, but she was able to accurately locate Tang Tianqiu's figure and pursue her again. Fortunately, there aren't many people living nearby, otherwise there would have been many deaths. In this way, an unarmed ordinary person and a monster with 1,000 fishing mirrors engaged in a fierce chase battle in the intricate alley. Chapter 3. Awakening the Spirit Chen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tang Tianqiu, relying on his familiarity with the terrain and the advantage of the alleys, barely gained the upper hand. However, after running for more than 3 minutes, Tang Tianqiu was extremely tired. The shameless woman was a strange beast, and there was almost no mention of being tired. The shameless woman's tentacles rapidly extended and made a piercing sound, approaching Tang Tianqiu's face. Without time to think, Tang Tianqiu picked up a large wooden board from the ground and placed it horizontally in front of him. Boom! The wooden board was cut in two, and Tang Tianqiu was knocked out, hitting a wall heavily. Puff! Tang Tianqiu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his face extremely pale. It's over, I'm dead this time. I didn't expect to be young, he murmured to himself. Although Tang Tianqiu doesn't think he can survive under the monster's mouth, he still wants to make a final resistance and see if he can create a miracle. So, Tang Tianqiu picked up a vase with his back hand and smashed it at the faceless woman. Unfortunately, the vase was shattered by tentacles before it hit the shameless woman. The shameless woman was about to take action when Tang Tianqiu picked up another vase and threw it at it. One can't do it, those two can't do it, just three. In the following half-minute, Tang Tianqiu threw anything he could pick up at the faceless woman, causing varying degrees of harm each time. Although it may seem unethical to do so, the shameless woman was smashed for half a minute, and a wave of anger surged into her heart, feeling insulted. The faceless woman roared angrily and rushed towards Tang Tianqiu. Several tentacles wrapped around his waist, lifting him up in the air. Tang Tianqiu's head was facing the faceless woman's mouth. It's over, it's over. Tang Tianqiu muttered to himself. At a moment of despair in Tang Tianqiu's heart, a golden energy surged out of his body, directly burning off the tentacles wrapped around him. The shameless woman felt pain and took a few steps back. Tang Tianqiu did not fall in mid-air, but adjusted his figure and stood in the air. That golden energy erupted from him like an erupting volcano. In the next moment, a golden beam of light rises into the sky, illuminating the entire night sky. In the pillar of light, a phantom wearing an imperial robe emerged. Although it could not be seen, one could feel a gaze overlooking everything below, and an extremely terrifying pressure descended upon the world. 2 kilometers away from the beam of light. After the captain pierced through the bald head of a shameless woman, he felt pressure because he was far away, so his pressure was weak and he could at least barely move. Is this the birth of a god? No, it's just a divine illusion. The pressure of the illusion alone is so strong, how powerful is its essence? The captain carefully analyzed it. Is a divine candidate born? This is too fierce. Jingwen ran to the captain and said, which divine is this? With such a big stroke of money, that candidate should also be a talent. A few days ago, 3 owners of the ultimate spirit Chen were born. I thought it was outrageous enough, but now there is a divine candidate. Our Shanghai city is full of talented people, the captain sighed. A few kilometers away from the light column, in a hotel in Shanghai City, there is a balcony in room 206. 3 young men stood shoulder to shoulder, gazing at the towering beam of light and the faintly visible phantom of the gods in the distance. Lingchen awakens. Do we have another teammate? Said the man in red standing in the middle. No, maybe it's a divine awakening. Look, that could be a phantom of divine consciousness. Standing to the left of the man in red, there was an elegant boy wearing blue clothes and glasses. Guo Deji, where are your binoculars? Guo Deji, who was called upon, was a fat man. He reluctantly returned to his room and handed a telescope to the boy in blue. Should we go and take a look? Guo Deji asked. No need, all owners of Lingchen will be admitted to Haotian Academy, and they will see it when they receive the admission notice in 2 weeks, replied the man in red. Oh, by the way, Guo Zhixian, don't you know how to skip the Guangxi subject 3? Then you can show him. Guo Deji smiled. Why? I don't want to. Guo Zhixian fiercely refused. It's great, aren't you going to record it? Why haven't you recorded it yet? Said the man in red. Shanghai City is adjacent to Lingxi City. A girl in white stood on the rooftop of an office building, surrounded by 3 giant birds with human faces. Behind the girl in white, there were 6 pure white wings. Shanghai City. How could it be? A few days ago, I awakened 3 ultimate spiritual beings, and now I have awakened. Unknown spiritual beings, no, according to my breath, it is a divine being, but there is no such divine being. She murmured as she looked at the pillar of light. Forget it, whether it's Lingchen or Shenzhen. Let's go take a look first. I saw her 6 wings flutter and disappear in place. Faceless women's battlefield, the shameless woman was almost crushed into a meat cake by pressure, and it looked at Tang Tianxiu in fear, unable to move. Half a minute later, the beam of light gradually contracted, leaving only the golden light floating on the surface of the body. Tang Tianxiu slowly opened his eyes, emitting 2 dazzling golden lights. Death. Tang Tianxiu pointed at the shameless woman in the air and slowly uttered a syllable. Immediately after, a fragment of the vase on the ground was adorned with a layer of golden light, emitting a crisp sword sound, like a peerless divine weapon. Boom! The fragments made a piercing explosion sound, and in the blink of an eye, they chopped the shameless head into pieces. After finishing all of this, Tang Tianxiu fell to the ground, closed his eyes, and the golden light on his body gradually faded. A few seconds later, those eyes opened again and returned to their normal pupils, looking no different from ordinary people. Am I so awesome? Tang Tianxiu looked at his hands and said incredulously. During the process of killing the faceless woman just now, Tang Tianxiu's body seemed to be manipulated by someone. He could clearly see himself saying the word death and using fragments to kill the faceless woman, but he didn't know how to do it. He was always a bystander. While he was pondering, a blue light flashed in front of him, and a black shadow fell in front of him. Immediately after, a white shadow crashed from the sky, throwing out rolling smoke and dust. Chapter 4. Dream of the Church. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A blonde woman dressed in white walked out of the smoke and dust. On her back were 6 pure white wings, extremely beautiful, and her whole body was shrouded in white light, incredibly sacred. Angel. Tang Tianxiu looked at the angel, who seemed to have walked out of a mural, and exclaimed in surprise. The captain next to the woman was directly ignored. Hello, let me introduce myself. I am Liao Xuanhuan, the teaching director of Haotian College and the Angel of the Five Saints. The woman smiled and said, Are you the one who awakens the spirit Chen? Forget it, do you know what happened to the light pillar just now? The captain looked at Tang Tianxiu with a bewildered expression and spoke helplessly. I don't know, how did you kill the shameless woman? I don't know. This can't be blamed on Tang Tianxiu. When the beam of light rose, his eyes were only covered by golden light. After a while, he saw the stiff and expressionless woman. By the way, what is Haotian Academy? What is Lingchen? Tang Tianxiu asked in confusion. This is a bit complicated, I can't explain it clearly for a while, Liao Xuanhuan replied. The two of them asked Tang Tianluan a few more questions, and the answer was either not knowing or not knowing. Of course, when asked about his name, he would still answer. So, you can go to the time library tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, which is the base of our 229 team. Those Lingchen and Haotian Academy, I will explain them to you in detail. My name is Xuanhuan, the team leader. If you don't see me then, just call me by name. I may be processing the materials and forgot, said the team leader. Oh, by the way, this matter is confidential, don't tell anyone, Liao Xuanhuan said seriously. The body of this thing. We will handle it. Tang Tianxiu looked at the body of the shameless woman and then turned around and went home. Teacher, what do you think of this child? Xuanhuan turned to ask Liao Xuanhuan. It's pretty good. I'm talking about the nature of the mind. What kind of character can this kid have? He's just a passionate young man who hasn't delved into the world. Liao Xuanhuan is right. Tang Tianxiu is just an 18-year-old high school boy, and talking about lofty ambitions is pure nonsense. He was an orphan from a young age, and since he had memories, he has been living in an orphanage until he left high school to live alone. Therefore, during his growth, his closest relatives were only the orphanage director and a few close friends, and there were not many important people to protect. Tang Tianxiu's home. Tang Tianxiu lay on the sofa, reminiscing about everything that had happened today. The plot he usually only saw in novels and TV appeared in front of him today, and he was even a first-hand witness. Everything is as elusive as a dream. If it weren't for the pain of the shameless woman knocking him out just now, he would have thought he had a dream. How about testing my abilities? Wait a moment, how can I stimulate my mental power? As a reader who has read several novels, Tang Tianxiu knows about intangible and intangible things like spiritual power, but he doesn't know how to motivate or perceive them. Forget it, let's talk about it tomorrow. Today is too tiring. A sense of exhaustion surged in Tang Tianxiu's heart, making him want to fall asleep. A few minutes later, Tang Tianxiu, who had briefly washed himself, lay in bed and fell asleep. In a dream mist. Tang Tianxiu was a bit puzzled. There was fog all around him, and under his feet was endless darkness. He stood in the air like this. Tang Tianxiu took a step forward, his feet like stepping on an invisible ground, strangely stopping in the air. At the same time, the mist in front of him seemed to dissipate slightly. Ha! Tang Tianxiu let out a soft sigh and took a few steps forward, while the mist retreated with his footsteps. After understanding the fog mechanism, he walked briskly. I don't know how long I've been walking, but the dense fog in front of him gradually thins out, and I can vaguely see the outline of a building. Tang Tianxiu walked up to the building, which was a Western-style cathedral. In front of the church entrance, he had to take a flight of stairs, with no more or less, exactly 29 floors. On the 29th floor, Team 229. Is there any connection? Tang Tianxiu was puzzled. But he couldn't think of anything, so he could only step up the stairs and soon walk to the classroom door. What he didn't know was that every time he stepped up a staircase, his originally illusory body became more solid, and by the time he stepped up the 29th staircase, he was almost physical. On both sides of the church gate are tall walls, which extend into the mist without visible boundaries. As for how high the door is, 30 meters. 50 meters. Tang Tianshu watched as he towered in. Without clouds, lost in thought. From stepping up the 29th floor stairs, both the ground and the high walls of the gate gave him a sense of realism. Just like. This is not a dream, it's reality. Can you enter? Tang Tianshu placed his hand on the door. Suddenly, a sudden mutation occurred. A golden ripple rippled from Tang Tianshu's hand. Instantly, the entire gate and high wall spread, and the entire church trembled violently. I wiped it. I didn't do anything. Tang Tianshu exclaimed in shock. After trembling for a few seconds, the church returned to calm, as if nothing had happened just now. Tang Tianshu carefully observed the gate for a while, and after seeing that it had not moved again, he placed his hand on the gate again. Nothing happened this time. With a gentle push, Tang Tianshu easily opened a crack in the seemingly heavy door. It's on. Tang Tianshu became excited and suddenly pushed the door with even greater force, opening a gap that could accommodate one person to enter. Tang Tianshu flashed in, and when he stepped on the ground behind the door automatically closed, causing the entire church to shake again. Wow! Tang Tianshu stared at the scene in front of him and froze in place. Chapter 5. Tarot Church. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After entering the gate, there is a 15-meter-long stone path, with fragrant grass and flowers growing on both sides. Several small birds are flying in the air, and there is even a small pond where lotus flowers are planted. At the end of this small path, where birds sing and flowers bloom, there is a church, but its size is much smaller than the outer wall, and the main gate is only 2 or 3 meters high. And there is a plaque-like thing above the gate, with 4 quaint characters written on it, Tarot Church. Similarly, the door of the Tarot Church was very light, and Tang Tianshu pushed it open with a slight force. The scene inside is similar to that of a regular church, with a huge red carpet extending from the door to the innermost part. There are 2 rows of benches on both sides of the red carpet, and at the innermost part of the church is a podium. Behind the podium, there is a huge cross hanging. At the top of the walls on both sides of the church, 2 rows of windows are opened, and the sunlight from the outside is projected into the 2 rows of benches, creating a warm and harmonious scene. Unlike other churches, there are 6 tightly closed small doors and 2 open small doors on the walls on both sides of the Tarot Church. As Tang Tianshu delved deeper, he discovered a small door behind the podium, under the cross. Tarot Church, that should be related to tarot cards. Is it these 6 doors? Tang Tianshu walked up to the door and observed. From the inside out, the left side has numbers 1, 2, 3, and the right side has numbers 4, 5, and 6, while the small door behind the podium has numbers not 7, but 0. Each door is adorned with a tarot card, in order. Magician, Priestess, Emperor, Empress, Pope, Lover. And Gate 0 is not embedded with tarot cards. Why is Gate 0 so mysterious and mysterious? Tang Tianshu murmured to himself. He placed his hand on the doorknob and pulled hard. The door remains motionless. Tang Tianshu saw this, released his hand, and then slammed into the door. The door didn't even open a crack. Forget it, there are 2 open doors here. Let's go in and take a look. With that, Tang Tianshu took a step into the small open door on the left. Entering the small door, you will see a dazzling array of artifacts, all kinds of artifacts. What swords, knives, cauldrons, bronze bells, immortal rings, and all sorts of strange artifacts are there. The artifacts in museums are usually placed in glass cabinets, and there is also an introduction to artifacts below. Various display cabinets are arranged in a circular pattern, 1 ring at a time, and the more advanced the artifacts are, the more advanced they become. In the middle of more than 10 artifact rings, there is a circular area where 6 artifacts are arranged in a straight line. Among them, 5 artifact display cabinets have no lights and are plunged into darkness, with only the golden long sword on the far left shining. This is. Tang Tianxiu looked at the introduction of this sword. Tiangang sword. The most advanced attacking artifact that can be easily chopped off with a single strike to produce a powerful golden sword. Moreover, the sword itself is extremely hard and difficult to break by external forces. Of course, the introduction of casually chopping requires injecting spiritual energy to slay the sword, otherwise it is just a sharp sword. Tang Tianxiu observed the Tiangang sword and accidentally placed his hand on the glass. Verification passed. With just a crisp sound, the glass frame dissipated into particles without a trace. Tang Tianxiu. How come there is such a thing as identity verification? Tang Tianxiu slowly picked up the sword, played with it for a while, and then put it back. He vaguely felt a connection connecting him with the sword, as if with just one thought, the sword could appear in his hand. Tang Tianxiu went to look at the other 5 exhibition cabinets again, although he couldn't see what they looked like, he could see the outline clearly. The first dark display cabinet seemed to have a small bead, the second one had a flat outline. Tang Tianxiu looked at it again and saw a trace of the mask's outline, the third one was a long sword similar to Tiangang, the fourth cabinet was twice as long as the others, probably a long spear or halberd, and the fifth one was like a box. As for the other artifacts besides the 6 in the middle, Tang Tianxiu is also unable to use them. After turning around, you will receive a highly destructive Tiangang sword. Never mind, since it's an advanced artifact, it shouldn't be too weak, Tang Tianxiu comforted himself. Tang Tianxiu walked out of the artifact museum and walked towards another small open door. On top of that door, there are 5 words written. Wusheng Library. Is it the library again? Tang Tianxiu was somewhat surprised. Compared to the artifact museum, this Wusheng library is even more dreamy, with thick books suspended in the air and no bookshelves. Tang Tianxiu can easily retrieve the books with just one move. Tang Tianxiu casually picked up several books, 1 Bible, 1 biography of the Dragon Mother Tiamat, 1 Greek god of time Colonus, and 1 more. Harry Potter. He picked up Harry Potter and was about to open it, but suddenly found that it couldn't be opened at all. The cover and pages of the book are like being glued together with 502 glue, no matter how hard Tang Tianxiu tries, they cannot be opened, and the same applies to the other 3 books. What does it mean? Even if I don't show anything else, I won't show Harry Potter either. Tang Tianxiu was speechless. In the next 10 minutes, Tang Tianxiu kept repeating the actions of calling the book, flipping through it, unable to open it, throwing it back, and then calling the book again. Fortunately, he was in his dream now, so he wasn't tired, otherwise he would have been impatient to leave. However, there are several books with interesting titles that unfortunately cannot be read. Tang Tianxiu was searching when suddenly a book caught his eye. Fantasy Knight Faceless Girl Profile. The most crucial thing is that this book can be read. For a moment, Tang Tianxiu even doubted whether the Wusheng library could predict. Tang Tianxiu held the book and walked for 3 more minutes before finally finding another readable book. 100 Dragons Pulling Winter Laden. A Shameless Woman. Is there any connection between these 2 things? Tang Tianxiu walked slowly out of the Wusheng library, thinking as he walked. The books he casually threw along the way would automatically return to their original position, and the Wusheng library quickly returned to its original state. Tang Tianxiu walked back to the church holding the book and casually placed it on the bench. Alright, it's time to take a look at these 6 gates, Tang Tianxiu said. He walked up to gate 1 and pushed it hard, it's useless. Pull again, it's useless either. The same was true for the other 2, 3, 4, and 5 gates, until Tang Tianxiu reached the 6th gate and tightly grasped the door handle. Click. Chapter 6. Lovers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The door opened. In front of Tang Tianxiu's eyes, there was a double bed, a cabinet, a drawer, and a window next to the cabinet. The room was extremely simple, with only one water dispenser. On the bed, there were two people sitting. One was a Western man dressed in blue, with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was incredibly handsome and extremely handsome. Another Western woman wearing a pink dress and waist-length blonde hair, beautiful and moving. The two of them sat there, they were a couple made in heaven and earth. Two people. Tang Tianxiu hesitated slightly. Is this room? Lovers. The so-called lovers are necessarily two people in love, which is considered lovers. If we put it literally, these two people are still in a romantic relationship, not husband and wife. Are you Tang Tianxiu? The man spoke first. Hello, my name is Alan. Do you know me? Tang Tianxiu was shocked. To some extent, our lives, even this church, were created by you. The woman stood up and said, my name is Emma. Tang Tianxiu. Tang Tianxiu had thought that this church belonged to him because he could control everything, but he never expected that this thing would be created by him. This is too outrageous. What is the meaning behind that? By then, you will know for yourself, Alan said mysteriously. When will it be? The two of them didn't speak. Okay, let me change the question. Tang Tianxiu said helplessly, what is the purpose of your existence here? You can't live here for no reason, can you? When you gave us life back then, you said this question, Emma replied. We are here to give you our spiritual life. Chen. Do you also have Chen? Yes, this week not only refers to me and Alan, but also to the existence of the other 6 rooms. Tang Tianxiu felt a little excited at this moment. This church is also too kind-hearted. Not only did it give me artifacts, but it also gave me 6. Ah no, 7 spirit stars. The existence of Gate 0 should also give spirit stars. However, when Alan saw Tang Tianxiu feeling a bit complacent, these two deliberately raised their tone. There is no free lunch in the world. Before we give you Chen, you need to pay a small price. Upon hearing these words, Tang Tianxiu's expression froze and he thought of some unpleasant things. Don't use this expression, neither we nor the others behind us will make things difficult for you. Emma comforted Tang Tianxiu when she saw this expression on her face. We only need you to help us find 2 swords. Sword. Yes, before we entered, we lost our sword in a battle. Tell me more specifically. The 2 swords are male and female, mine is the female sword, and Alan is the male sword. The sword body is silver, and 2 gemstones, one red and one blue, are embedded on the handle. Are 2 swords in the same place or are they in 2 different places? In the same place, we lost it at the same time. Do you know where it is? Hiss. What's that mountain called? Alan, do you remember? It seems to be called Wusheng Mountain. Wusheng Mountain. It seems we won't be able to find it in a short period of time. Tang Tianxiu is located in Shanghai City, far from Wusheng Mountain. Now he still has to go and learn about Chen, so he has no mood to leave Shanghai City. After talking for a few more minutes, Tang Tianxiu returned his consciousness to its original form. When Tang Tianxiu woke up, it was around 8 o'clock in the morning. Since opening the door, Tang Tianxiu can enter the church with his consciousness anytime and anywhere, and it seems that he can bring in real things. After washing his face, Tang Tian sat down and carefully recalled the conversation he had just had with his lover. Suddenly, he stood up suddenly and thought of something. Whether it's Alan or Emma, their way of calling themselves is you. But I guess it's also true. If I can give them life, then in their eyes, I naturally have a high status. Later, he also asked his lover a few questions, but they all remained silent. Tang Tianxiu stayed in the church all night and realized the presence of spiritual power and spirit. The spiritual power is elusive, like a cloud of gas. Tang Tianshu's consciousness can control the flow of spiritual power and inject it into other places. But injecting ordinary things is useless. Now Tang Tianshu knows that the only useful ones are the Tiangang sword and his own spiritual Chen. Ling Chen was a huge golden star in his mind, and Tang Tian had to inject spiritual power into it in order to use a trace of power. As for whether this trace accounted for 1%, it is unknown. When Tang Tianshu infused his spiritual energy into Ling Chen, a golden light appeared on his palm, and he pointed to the cup on the table, causing it to float. He snapped his fingers and the water glass burst open. Reaching out again, the water cup returned to its original state in the air. Tang Tianshu tried for more than 10 minutes until his mental strength was exhausted before stopping. After trying for so long, Tang Tianshu roughly understood the ability of this Ling Chen. He can give instructions to any creature or dead object, and the other party will execute the instructions to a certain extent. There are many types of instructions, such as suspension, explosion, and repair. However, Tang Tianshu is currently unable to give commands to creatures, and he can only give commands to small objects such as stones and leaves for dead objects. As for large objects such as tables and televisions, although these objects can also give commands, their completion rate is not high. Tang Tianshu sat on the sofa, his mind stirred, and a bucket of golden unsheathed long sword appeared in his hand. Tiangang sword. Although Tang Tianshu's spiritual power was exhausted, the Tiangang sword had established a connection with him and could be summoned without spiritual power, but he could not wield the sword gang. Soon, I will be able to test the power of sword gang, but why don't we go to an open place to test it later? Tang Tianshu muttered to himself, his mental strength slowly recovering. Chapter 7. 9-Dimensional Time and Space and the Major Divine Kingdoms. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 8. Haotian Wusheng and Confidential Team. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. 2 minutes later, Xuanhuan took a sip of water and slowly sat back in his chair. Do you understand the relationship between Haotian Academy and Ling Chen? Next, I will talk about the 5 saints of Haotian. Tang Tianshu nodded. Each of the 5 saints of Haotian is at the peak of Wusheng's realm, and there is another name for this realm called half-gods. They have already stepped onto the threshold of the gods with half a step, and have the combat power to rival the gods, which is not even a star or a half compared to Wusheng's realm. Wow, it sounds really impressive. Yes, they are. Tao Saint, Angel, Ice Saint, Martial Saint, and Destiny Saint. Angel. Is she? Tang Tianshu immediately thought of Liao Xuanhuan, who was shrouded in the holy light. Yes, she is our teacher and also a candidate for the battle angel Michael in the Bible, with incredible combat power. Dao Sheng is the president of Haotian Academy, and I don't quite remember his name, but he seems to be a candidate for the primordial heavenly sovereign, one of the 3 Qin dynasties in China. Tang Tianshu. Among the 5 saints, there are 2 candidates for gods. Are there many candidates for gods? Tang Tianshu asked. Can it be considered true? Regardless of how many small myths there are 8 major myths. China, Northern Europe, Greece, Heavenly Kingdom, Brahman, Buddhism, Egypt, and Japan. Although not every god has a candidate, even if each myth only has more than 10 candidates, this number is very small for a single mythological deity, but there are still 8 to 90 candidates in total, explained Xuanhuan. Do the 5 saints have their own strengths and weaknesses? Tang Tianshu suddenly asked. In terms of realm, the Tao Saint among the 5 saints is closest to the deity, while in terms of overall combat power, such as familiarity with the use of the spirit Chen, the Ming Saint is the weakest. Isn't Ming Sheng in charge of life? How could he be the weakest? He is not in charge of life, this fate refers to fate and causality. Puff. Tang Tianshu almost spat out a mouthful of old blood, in charge of fate and cause and effect. do you call this the weakest? Xuanhuan shook his head and said, at first, I thought the same way, but later I realized that if there were no weapons with large-scale destruction as attack methods, causality would at most be a passive skill for rebounding damage. Think about it, what can causality do? Number 34, no, isn't it possible to fabricate a non-existent cause and effect? Isn't it possible to create a paradox of causality, conceal causality, and create an unchangeable history? What you said may seem strong, but don't you think it's not very useful in actual combat? The reason for creating non-existent things sounds good, but in layman's terms, it means ignoring the realm and forcing conscious objects into memory. As for the inevitable result of change, the three functions you mentioned actually only have one effect, but the problem is that these three functions are aimed at omniscience and omniscience. Where is there so much omniscience and omniscience in the world? Which deity has nothing to do and moves across time and space? There are many gods who spy on time and space, but basically all of them are the supreme god of creation. How could a human being, the god of destiny, be killed by a supreme one? So hiding causality is useful for some people, but not for an ordinary person. Based on your theory, is causality useless in frontal combat? Yes, at least that's what I think. Isn't that right? If killing one monster is equivalent to killing 10,000, and even forces a person who is good at layout to have no way out, how can we call frontal combat useless? When killing monsters, if he only relies on cause and effect without powerful skills, he cannot kill a monster at all. If he cannot kill one, how can he kill 10,000? As for that person, he used cause and effect 3 times. I created a false memory for the first time, a relationship with a divine sword, and a causal bond between myself and that person, making it impossible for him to escape. 3 times using cause and effect, the first time almost killed that person, but relying on the spiritual power of the Destiny Saint, this memory cannot be sustained for too long. It is related to the divine sword, which forcibly requisitions the treasure. If the main lord is not around, it is okay. If the main lord uses his power to retrieve the treasure, the backlash will be great. If it is requisitioning the artifact, the Destiny Saint will find it difficult to survive. As for the cause and effect that makes that person unable to escape, it works well when chasing, but which normal person uses it that way when fighting? After listening to Xuanhuan's analysis, Tang Tianqiu felt his mind buzzing. That is to say, if there is no large-scale damage harvesting weapon, causality can also rebound damage and create memory. It's similar, but cause and effect are obscure and difficult to understand. There's also a possibility that we may not even know how to use cause and effect ourselves. Apart from cause and effect, the Destiny Saint can glimpse and change fate, which is probably a prophecy that can be very effective for layout and combat. After a pause of about half a minute, Xuanhuan saw Tang Tianqiu gradually coming to his senses and continued, in addition to the 5 saints of Haotian, there are also 5 top-secret teams in Haotian Academy. The 5 teams all have their own code names, and each has at least 2 divine candidates sitting in charge, with strength even higher than the 5 saints. However, I heard that one team was recently defeated, and now there should only be 4. It can be seen that there are really many divine candidates, there are only 2 in a small team. What are the names of those 4 teams? Tang Tianqiu asked excitedly. I don't know about the new students, but there are 2 older teams called Xuanhuan and Jiuqiu. The second team, Jiuqiu, is more special. It is said that all 9 members of the team are reincarnations of the 9 daughters of the Phoenix. Which 9 daughters are those? I don't know. Why are you looking at me with this expression? I'm not their team member. How do you know which 9 chips are? Let's talk about the Xuanhuan team. The name sounds quite nice. They basically don't come out. I heard they are guarding the Chinese fortune. Wow, so awesome. Yes, many exotic beasts will come to China because China has had a strong fortune for 5,000 years, attracting them and often attracting external gods to spy. They are the half-step gods of every era. Although they cannot kill the gods, they can still be repelled. How long has the Guardian been around? I don't know, but strangely enough, it seems that exotic beasts only descend on Earth. No matter what legends other extraterrestrial civilizations have, exotic beasts will not appear, and there will be no peace between the 9 dimensions. There will be frequent wars. Over 150 years ago, there was a 6, 7, and 8-dimensional melee, but no matter how it was fought, the flames of war will not spread to Earth. It's not that the level of civilization on Earth is low. Tang Tianxiu said, suddenly stopping. A planet with a group of superpowers will have a low level of civilization. Anyway, when the exotic beast, or the spirit Chen, comes, the protector will be established. It's just that the times and names are different. Although Shi Zixuan and Tang Tianxiu only talked for half an hour, these activities were enough to overturn everyone's worldview. If someone else were to listen to this passage, they would probably call the mental hospital directly. Chapter 9. Spiritual Tools. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After sitting for half an hour, Tang Tianxiu stood up, loosened his stiff muscles, and followed Shi Zixuan downstairs. This time library has 3 floors, with bookshelves arranged in a spiral shape. The stairs are in front of the bookshelves, also descending in a spiral. On the first floor, 6 figures stand side by side, waiting for a long time. These 6. My team member, a member of our 229 team. The leftmost team member slowly lifted his hat, revealing a young and handsome face. 229 team's frontal combat power, Peng Wei Luo. The man on his right side also lifted his hat, which was a mature face that had been on the battlefield for a long time, with a hint of ferocity. 229 team has a frontal combat power, Chao Yibin, he said confidently. 229 squadron has front-line combat power, Chu Jingtong. A fair and beautiful blonde girl next to Chao Yibin lifted her hat and spoke calmly. Guiyang Ting, the hot weapon support and online speech processor of Team 229. This is a quiet boy wearing black-framed glasses. Online speech processing. Tang Tianxiu had some doubts, but did not ask. 229 squad, forbidden line, a ranger and assassin's melee combat power, Zhu Jingguan, said a silver-haired girl. Beside her, a tall man lifted his hat and said, 229 teams remote control combat power, Du Shuaheng. After everyone finished introducing him, Tang Tianxiu slowly looked at Shi Zixuan and said, here, explain what online speech processing is and what is the prohibition line. Come with me, let me show you the forbidden line. Guiyang Ting led Tang Tianxiu to a bookshelf and said as they walked, every time we clean up exotic beasts, there are basically more or less witnesses, and witnesses may post the captured exotic beasts or videos online. Aren't you asking them to sign a confidentiality agreement? It's a joint signing, but the time from discovering the monster, killing the monster to finding the witness is not short, ranging from 2 to 3 days, to 6 or 7 days at most. It's not easy to find witnesses. And during this time period, they didn't sign a confidentiality agreement, so naturally they can't be said to have violated the law. If they don't know that we have posted it online, it will cause panic. At this point, I will handle these comments, usually in 3 steps. The first step is for the police to clarify. Our guardian has contact with the local police, and we pretend to be the police to clarify the incident, but it won't have much effect. At the same time, I will proceed to the second step of blocking comments, blocking most of the comments to reduce the spread of rumors, and using the remaining small portion as the third step. The third step is to fabricate rumors. I will turn a small part of the monster into a supernatural event, with some scientific elements mixed in. This way, most people will only consider it as a confirmed supernatural event. What if someone goes on an adventure to that supernatural place while you are eliminating monsters? Tang Tianxiu pondered seriously and asked. This is one of the important roles of the prohibition line, Guiyang replied. Unconsciously, they walked up to the bookshelf on the first floor and stopped. In the middle of this bookshelf, there are a few books and a small statue of an owl. This is a white-winged owl with yellow eyes and black pupils. Guiyang extended his index finger and placed it on the owl's head. A few seconds later, the owl's eyes turned red, and at the same time, a crisp warning sound sounded. Fingerprint verification successful, please enter the password. 2 beams of red light shot out from the owl's eyes, forming a void panel. Guiyang moved his 4 fingers together and directly typed out 13 codes. The password is correct, please enter. The bookshelf suddenly swiped in, then opened to the left, revealing a large curved room with a pile of weapons neatly placed inside. Knives, swords, spears, submachine guns, snipers, and even a few howitzers. In the middle of each curved display cabinet, there is a rectangular glass table with a roll of warning lines, a radio, and a black box placed on it. Spiritual beings not only descend on humans, but also on objects. In order to distinguish them from the treasures of the divine realm, we call them spiritual artifacts. Guiyang picked up the roll of warning line and threw it twice. This roll is the forbidden line, which can be pasted anywhere. As long as it is pasted into a closed shape, it will form an invisible barrier to isolate the inside and outside. Although it can be penetrated from the outside, at least it needs to be done from the void realm. As for the inside, don't even try to break the Goliheng realm. There are only 2 ways to open the forbidden line. Either the pasted person opens it themselves or kills the pasted person. Why can a shameless woman still escape when you talk so eloquently about the forbidden line? Tang Tianxiu remembered the shameless woman who almost swallowed her. The height of the forbidden line is fixed at over 200 meters, but it is only 2 meters underground. If a shameless woman evades for more than 2 meters, she will break through the forbidden line. Guiyang explained and then picked up the radio with a strong sense of the times. This is the hypnosis radio, whose function is to brainwash. If only 1 or 2 people see it during the elimination of monsters, of course, you don't need to use this radio. However, if the elimination of monsters involves more than 10 people, you need to use this device to clear your memory. Guiyang paused for a moment before adding, these 2 spiritual tools are artificial spiritual tools, wholesale from Haotian's side. Tang Tianxiu. What? Can you still wholesale this kind of thing? Number 34, yes, there are only a few naturally generated, forbidden lines, and hypnotic radios, and various city garrison teams use this kind of imitation artificial version. I don't know how to make them. Guiyang picked up the black box, his mind moved, and the black box quickly decomposed and combined into a sniper rifle. Transformation box, this is my spiritual weapon that can be transformed into other weapons according to my mind. After saying this, the black box decomposed and reassembled again, becoming a long sword full of technological sense. After saying a few more key points, the 2 of them walked out of the weapons room. At the bottom, Chao Yibin ran to the underground training ground. Zhu Jingwen didn't know where he had gone. Chu Jingtong was preparing the textbook for Tang Tianxiu's class tomorrow, while Du Xuanhuan went to the suburbs to practice controlling Lingchen. His Lingchen controlled the earth, so when using Lingchen, attention should be paid to the range of geological changes, otherwise it would affect the geology of the urban area. Shi Zixuan and Peng Weiluo were sitting on the sofa chatting, while Guiyang walked straight to the shooting range. Tang Tianxiu walked up to the 2 of them and asked, "Can I stay in the team?" Shi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "No, we don't have any extra dormitories." "No, Captain, don't we still have several dormitories available?" Peng Weiluo asked in confusion when he heard Shi Zixuan's words. Shi Zixuan. Looking at Peng Weiluo's bewildered eyes and the guilty expression on Shi Zixuan's face, Tang Tianxiu roughly understood what had happened. I mean, why did you come to stay here? Isn't it good to stay at home? You have to pay rent at home, pay for meals yourself, and don't need accommodation. Pluck my wool, right? Chapter 10. Supremacy of Imperial Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While Tang Tianxiu was discussing accommodation issues with Shi Zixuan, a crisp doorbell rang. Ding dong, the door of the Time Library was pushed open, and a white-clothed blonde woman walked in. Although she didn't have the iconic 6 wings, Tang Tianxiu recognized Liao Xuanhuan at a glance. Teacher. Shi Zixuan stood up from the sofa with a smile and welcomed Liao Xuanhuan. Liao. Teacher. Tang Tianxiu didn't know how to call Liao Xuanhuan for a moment. Oh. Brother Tiandi. Liao Xuanhuan smiled and said, just call me Xuanhuan outside. When you arrive at Haotian Academy, call me teacher. Find a quiet place, don't let anyone know about this, Liao Xuanhuan said to Shi Zixuan. It seems that things are not easy. Tianxiu, you should go home first. You can test your abilities anytime. After Shi Zixuan finished speaking these words, he walked up the stairs with Liao Xuanhuan. Tang Tianxiu didn't say much, but when he saw Liao Xuanhuan, he felt as if there was something unusual in his body. Shizixuan office, I roughly understand why Su Ruhan sent you to this 229 team, Liao Xuanhuan said calmly with a smile. Upon hearing these words, Shi Zixuan frowned and said, oh. Can you tell me why? Ladong. Liao Xuanhuan slowly announced a name, 100 giant dragons Ladong. Sorry, you guessed wrong, Shi Zixuan shook his head. The secrets here are far greater and more complex than 100 dragons. However, I also want to hear about Ladong. Have you ever seen anyone from the KOS church? Liao Xuanhuan frowned slightly. No, Shi Zixuan replied. Recently, I found KOS people in several cities around Shanghai City, all targeting Shanghai City and related to Ladong. Number 34, Leiden number 34, Shi Zixuan muttered the name, either they make Leiden awaken in Shanghai City, or let Leiden descend to Shanghai City. The latter is fine, with your strength, killing it is not a problem, but if it is the former, then things will be troublesome. Upon hearing these words, Liao Xuanhuan's face changed, as if he had captured some key point, but he couldn't figure it out. It's 12 noon now, on a certain street. What's the name? Give instructions to things, Tang Tianxiu thought of a name for his abilities as he walked. You want to call it Imperial Power first. This sounds pretty good. Tang Tianxiu had just bitten off a piece of chicken cutlet in his hand when suddenly, several motorcycles drove past the puddle on the road next to him, and the splashing water was just enough to wet the chicken cutlet. Tang Tianxiu glanced at the wet chicken chops and then touched his empty pocket. Then warmly greet the parents of the motorcycle rider. Just now after greeting Tang Tianxiu, he turned around and wanted to leave. Then the motorcycles suddenly stopped and exchanged a few words. After that, they turned their heads and drove straight towards Tang Tianxiu. Tang Tianxiu. Sleeping trough, have you all heard this? Without any hesitation, Tang Tianxiu ran without looking back. But after all, it was a motorcycle, and its speed and maneuverability were not comparable to Tang Tianxiu. He quickly caught up with Tang Tianxiu, and when he turned around, he even saw the locomotive crew taking out some sticks and knives. Upon seeing this, Tang Tianxiu immediately urged for the supremacy of imperial power. The leaves of several trees around him were covered with a layer of golden awn and detached from the tree body, roaring like a tide towards the locomotive group. This scene may seem spectacular, but in reality, it requires very little mental energy from Tang Tianxiu. The volume and mass of the leaves are small, so there is no need to use too much mental energy. Then, Tang Tianxiu added a sharpness, a tribute to half of the leaves, consuming a quarter of his spiritual power. Although the sharpness he added cannot kill people, it is still possible to cut through the tires. Quickly, the more than 10 tires waiting for the scooter in front were all scrapped. The motorcycle drivers picked up their weapons and caught up with Tang Tianqiu. Tang Tianqiu ran with his back to them, but now he has stopped and still has his back to them. "Hey, the kid just scolded me so well, why didn't he run?" The strong man walking ahead with a wolf-toothed stick grinned and walked towards Tang Tianqiu. Just as he raised his wolf-toothed stick and threw it at the back of Tang Tianqiu's head. Pa-da-da, a golden light silently flashed through the center of the wolf-toothed stick, cutting it in half and falling to the ground. Before the strong man could understand what had happened, another golden light pierced his heart. At this moment, the strong man finally saw clearly that it was a sword, a golden sword. Tiangang. The blood of the strong man sprayed onto the hands of Tiangang's sword and Tang Tianqiu, staining the clothes of several thugs next to the strong man red. Those thugs were stunned by the death of the strong man, and Tang Tianqiu hesitated for a few seconds before pulling out the sword stained with blood. Then, Tang Tianqiu took a few steps back and retched. After all, he was just a high school student. He had learned the swordsmanship he had just used, but he had never killed anyone before. However, speaking of which, is it not illegal for the Guardian to kill such thugs? The group of thugs were stunned for 2 or 3 seconds, when suddenly someone in the crowd shouted, "Isn't he just a kid who just obtained the spirit Chen? We have so many people, and everyone is piling him up." Then the crowd boiled again. Tang Tianqiu. Do these people have such strong human nature? Do you still want to rush forward when you see your companion die? Now there are no small objects around him for him to give instructions. It's up to you, don't let me down. Tang Tianqiu looked at the heavenly gang sword in his hand and injected the remaining 1/3 of his spiritual power into it. After injecting spiritual power, the golden light on the Tiangang sword becomes even more brilliant. The thug saw this scene and his knife and stick were hovering in the air, hesitating whether he would still charge forward. Tang Tianqiu lifted his sword and slashed horizontally on his chest, directly cutting out a golden crescent moon. This is the introduction of the powerful golden sword gang. Moonlight flew straight towards the thugs, slaying the 5 thugs in front. Not only that, but also left a deep bloodstain on the stomachs of the people around the 5 thugs. Sleeping trough, is this too fierce? Tang Tianqiu exclaimed in surprise. Those thugs once again showed the same expression as when Tang Tianqiu killed a strong man just now, but this time, the shock in their eyes was even more intense.